Final Word Daily, coming to you live, packed from the hotel for reasons we may or may not get into. It was a disaster. But what's not a disaster is Ambassador Cruise Line, who are bringing you and giving you the chance to cruise with cricket legends this December. New Zealand are through to the World Cup semi-finals at the expense of India, at the expense of Pakistan. And how did it happen? How did it happen, Daniel Norcross? You've got 30 seconds to explain that.
It was batshit crazy today. New Zealand put themselves in a position of unbelievable peril, making only 110. How could they only get 110? But they were suffocated by the slow stylings of Pakistan's quadruple spin attack. Well, actually, I think there were 5 of them in the end. Sadly, no Tuba Hassan today. She's blown it. She failed to hit the high notes, and she has no longer able to play.
Wow.
Well, I know, yeah. Fatima Sana was back, and under her inspirational leadership, that quintet of Pakistan spinners suffocated the life out of New Zealand. They must have been petrified at the halfway stage, but Pakistan, knowing that if they could run down that score in 10.4 overs, they could leapfrog the lot. They could go straight into the semi-finals. That was a prize that they had to clutch for. They went hard. They went harder, and they went hardest, and they went home. 56 all out they made in pursuit. It is the second lowest total in T20 International World Cup history. And it is their lowest, Pakistan's lowest T20 international total. But that does not tell the story. We are going to tell the story of a quite remarkable game that enlivened me and enriched me more than I can say.
Scores on the doors. New Zealand 110 for 6 after 20 overs. In reply, as Dan mentioned, Pakistan fell for just 56 runs and they were bowled out in 11.4 overs. Now, Dan, you're going to have to explain a lot of the first innings to me because car crashes in the local area of Dubai meant that I was just literally in a traffic jam and drove from my flat to your hotel a distance of 500 metres in an hour and a quarter. So I didn't actually get a chance to get to the ground. Then I was dialed into the game on Now TV, having a lovely time, decompressing. I was a very frazzled man earlier today. So I checked the score whilst I'm not moving anywhere. I go, New Zealand. 40 for none off the power play. What a fantastic start. They're flying. Runs are flowing at the Dubai International Cricket Stadium. I then check my phone again. Runs have stopped flowing. I then start watching the innings. Runs evaporated. They disappeared. And somehow New Zealand only managed to score 70 runs in the final 14 overs. How did that happen?
Well, how did that happen? I'm going to try to explain. The slowest bowling since Ekta Bisht is what happened.
Wow.
And it's how Pakistan stifled England, you may recall, back in May, with the Berlin Wall, as it was described by one of England's coaches. It was almost impossible to penetrate. So slow was the bowling. Fatima Sana bowled 2 overs at the top, bowled actually quite nicely, but they went for 17 runs. Pace on was not the way to go. But at the other end, a quintet of spinners, Sadia Iqbal with 1 for 23, Nida Dar Big Nids 1 for 26 in what is probably her final World T20 international appearance. Umaima Sahel, she who kicks her front leg out in such an extraordinary way and has this really weird, low, slingy action. 1 for 14 in 4. Nashra Sandhu, 3 for 18 in 4. And Saiba Arub Shah, 2 overs at the back end there, meaning Fatima didn't have to bowl anymore. 2 overs, none for 11. They went for a point, 54 balls without a boundary. At the end of the fifth over,
it's 9 overs.
It's 9 overs. At the end of the fifth over, New Zealand hit their final boundary until the start of the 15th over. It was that crazy, I tell you. Or was it the very end of the 15th? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. But it's in that ballpark. There was, amidst all of that, a whole array of comical moments. 8 dropped catches. Sophie Devine somehow surviving through some of the luckiest innings you've ever seen. We saw a bit more of Georgia Plymouth hitting, not just in the V, but in the mini V. You got your big V, and then you got your mini V. Well, I'm glad you asked me that. So when you see the V, when they go scoring areas, and they do little, well, they're not quadrants either. They're sort of
octagons.
What is it? Octagons?
Well, no, an octagon's a shape. Divide an octagon.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So they go a little.
It's in eighths.
It's bits of cheeses, right?
Okay.
And it's in eighths. Yeah. So she was hitting in 16ths. So if you cut that V in half either side from long on, long off, and just bring it in even tighter, she was hitting it as straight as straight can
just
be.
Dead straight the whole time.
Dead straight. Well, to the onside and offside of straight, not precisely straight. That would be crazy, but it was very straight. And the long on and long off came tighter and tighter to try to just cut down Georgia Plymouth's arc and swinging zone. And she, again, looked good. Susie Bates got off to a good start. But Mealy Kerr and Sophie Devine were then stuck against a suffocating spin. And there was some spin on offer, actually. We talk about the spin in Sharjah. There isn't a lot of spin in Sharjah. There's a lot of slow bowling in Sharjah. In Dubai today, there was a little bit of turn. There was a bit of fun out there. And it was causing all sorts of problems. And with the lack of pace on the ball, there was one ball today was bowled about 38 miles an hour.
Oh, I can beat that. Nida Dar, 36.
36, big nids, taking the pace off. And it was just, you could see that New Zealand, they were increasingly panicking. Having chosen to bat first, you may wonder the merits of that, because it would have been more interesting to see Pakistan bat first, knowing they needed to set a big total if they were going to win. Because a subplot to all of this was that if Pakistan, if they chased, could do it inside 10.4 overs, or 11.3 if they hit the last ball for 6 when the scores were level,
I enjoyed that.
or 11.1 if they hit the last ball for 4 when the scores were level.
It is really dumb that we're at a World Cup and we are literally working at the events. We've been to every single match, apart from me today, happens. And going into these fixtures, even 2 days ago, we should have known. We should be able to know what the permutations are going to be for people to go through. I've just made it about myself. We shouldn't have to be waiting for the interval of the match to go like, oh, okay, sweet. So Pakistan restricted New Zealand to 110. That's really, really good. 10 overs, right? They need to get a hurry on. But I want to give, before you get into the dropped catches and the general farcical nature of just the chaos of Pakistan's fielding innings and then the uber chaos of their batting innings.
Yeah.
I've got 2 theories I want to put to you.
This is your theory. Yes.
Theory 1. Facing the Berlin Wall of Pakistan.
Yeah.
So they're going pace really off.
Very off.
36 miles an hour.
Almost going backwards.
Absolutely lobbing it up and going, try and hit me. Try and hit us through the Berlin Wall.
You're hard enough.
And it's like impossible because it's a 70-metre straight hit and you're working with 0 pace. I think, what if you bat backwards? You turn, you basically face almost short fine leg and you catch up with it and you hit it 50 metres behind the wicket. And I don't think I can be convinced it won't work until I see it fail.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
look, as theory goes, look, it isn't the worst one, is it? It's like when you play club cricket and there's this 12-year-old and they bowl, like, in theory, leggies. And everybody's all a bit stuck because they're trying to play them on the front foot, when what you should really do is go so deep in your crease.
Exactly.
So you just wait and then thrash it off the back foot, because however full they bowl it, you can still play it off the back foot with a horizontal bat shot. I tend to agree with you. And there were a couple of attempts at doing that. But
Brooke Halliday, this is what I'm saying. She gets the reverse out and she just hits it backwards. I was like, this is the way. This is the future.
Yeah.
You just reminded me about when I was big 12 and bowling like very, very slow leggies. I actually went back to this ground. This is a tangent that's not relevant to the World Cup at all. I went back to this ground for the first time in 10 years because my friends were playing a football game there. And it's a ground called Fish Ponds and it has a cemetery right next to it.
How
lovely. I remember bowling these leggies and the adult batsman has hit me into the cemetery and he's come down the ground and tapped his bat along the wicket and gone,
"Don't bowl there, son."
I call that one the graveyard shot. And I was like, "Oh my God!"
He sounds like a bit of a wag.
Yeah,
that one.
he said it with a smile on his face. Quick, we need to get through my theory.
Sorry.
My second theory about
this is your second theory.
My second theory when we're talking about our seams actually been outperforming spin this competition. Is that not just called Megan Shoot? Is that just like you go like, oh, the numbers show that seam is better than spin? Is that not just because one seamer?
Well, and cap. Shooting cap.
Yeah, if anything, that furthers my theory.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Anyway, I just want to put those out there.
Well, you're dead right.
I wasn't actually going to give you a chance to respond to that.
Have you got your third theory?
No, I only said I had 2.
Only 2. Okay.
So, Pakistan, Fatima Sana takes 4 catches, drops 3. Genuinely weird cricket in the final over or 2 of New Zealand's innings.
A lot of those catches didn't really matter.
They didn't matter, but it did matter in the feeling of the match, because I thought it was very relevant that the final ball was caught, because it gives Pakistan this like notion of like momentum and like this hasn't been a disaster going off the pitch, because like Nida Dar's bowl, she's bowling it. It's getting hit out to the boundary. You're happy if they score 14 off the last 2 overs. The fielder drops it, they throw the ball in, and then they just repeat that 3 or 4 times. You're like, this doesn't really matter. But it was getting a bit farcical. 8 drop catches across the innings. And then Pakistan have a decision.
But just quickly, I mean, it did. I think the last catch did matter, and I'll tell you for why. Because if that had been dropped as well, I genuinely think Nida Dar would have just ripped someone's throat clean out. She was so furious.
Then it would have been her last ever match. She was imprisoned.
Yes, she would. But she could. I think she would have been pardoned.
I think that's fair. Yeah,
I would have pardoned her.
Pakistan now have a choice.
Mm.
Well, they don't have a choice. They have a date with destiny.
They do.
They need to chase these runs in 10.5 to 11 something overs, depending on if they hit the last ball for 6,
etc.
And fuck me, did they go for it?
They really did. Alia Riaz came out. No more Gul for Rosa. She's in the bin. Out comes Alia Riaz, who should have been in earlier anyway, in my view. And he's out for 0 or 3 balls.
It's fine. It's fine.
Or 2 balls. But Muniba Ali went after her first ball, didn't she? Just manages to clear mid-on, and it runs off towards the boundary, doesn't quite get there. Intent was everywhere. There was intent wherever you looked, or as Owen Morgan would say, intent. There was a lot of intent. Intent everywhere. Intent all over the board. And it was great to see. The problem with the intent was that it was not very well executed intent. So before you know it, in the twinkling of an eye, it's 28 for 5. Now, what was fascinating about all this was at the same time that if New Zealand lost, they were out of the competition. And
there were no
India or Pakistan were through, depending on how swiftly they lost. So you were wondering, are Pakistan just going to keep on slogging until the 10.4 overs is up? You know, was that for a while it looked like that. And at 28 for 5, you genuinely thought this game was going to be done and dusted within 10 overs because they've made the decision. And, you know, not to put too fine a point on it, I don't suppose Pakistan was sitting there thinking, oh, let's make sure we win so our neighbours India can get through.
That's geopolitics, baby.
It is, and I don't want to get into that. But what it was that they were trying to win quickly so that they could get through. And they showed commendable vim. But then they got undone by a spin. So starting with Rosemary Mayer, it looked to me that New Zealand had actually picked the wrong side because they got Rosemary Mayer and they got Leah Tohuhu, and they were going to use pace on a pitch where the Pakistanis wanted pace more than anything else. But then we had the introduction of the wonderful Eden Carson, and she's fast growing into one of my favourite players in the whole tournament. When asked at the end of the game, did you see?
No.
Well, she wasn't asked, she was told that, you know, at the end of it all, it's a wrap up, goes, so Eden, you're a World Cup semi-finalist. She made a noise for the ages. She went,
wonderful.
It was. I can't replicate the noise because it's too high for my register, but it was the most deliciously wonderful noise you've ever seen or heard, I should say. But it also came with an incredible smile.
I feel like she's a type of cricketer. In the 19th century, she'd be described as like spunky. Just being like.
Do you not say that anymore?
I don't think so. I think I
do.
I think you saw the little.
I am old.
Well, case in point.
All right.
That's low hanging fruit.
Ageism.
Yeah, I know. And also, do you know,
workplace bullying.
I don't like those jokes. They're just low hanging fruit. It's easy.
Well, you just made it.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Oh, well.
Fran Jonas.
What a spunky player she is. There you go.
Eden Carson and 3 wickets for Mealy Kerr. There was a sort of inevitability to it. But where things were getting interesting was that at 5 down, or I think that was when Big Neds joined Fatima Sana, Nida Dar wasn't really playing the game, right? She was getting in and she wanted to win the game. And fair enough. I mean,
how dare she?
Well, the game was sort of up at that point. So at 28 for 5 off 5, they still need another 82 off 5.4 overs. And I think she probably thought, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So she, I wouldn't say dug in, but she started to play sensibly. And then you looked up the scoreboard and you realised they've promoted a bunch of players and now they've got their 2 best batters, possibly. I mean, you might say Sidra Amin as well, Alia Riaz. But, you know, the experience of Nida Dar, you've got the brilliance of Fatima Sana together. And you're thinking, well, if they just decide now to take singles, and there were lots of gaps, because New Zealand had assumed that Pakistan would keep slogging, and they didn't quite. So there was just a couple of overs when it was one here, one there, and you're thinking, hang on. I think Pakistan are going to win this by default, sort of thing. You know, not the way they wanted to win, but let's face it, let's just win, sort of thing.
52 for 5.
Exactly, at 52 for 5, needing only a further 58 with, about 10 overs to go?
Exactly, 10.2 overs to go.
10.2, so 62 balls to get 58 runs with 2 set batters knocking the ball about. And it wasn't a treacherous pitch, it was just hard to score boundaries on it. You thought, I reckon India have now checked back into the hotel. They've cancelled their seat reservation on their flight tomorrow morning, and they've unpacked everything. And then came the Uber collapse. The collapse to just bring joy and gladness to everyone's hearts who loves madness. Last 5 wickets for 4 runs.
4 runs, and they fell in 11 balls.
It was gorgeous for many reasons.
I didn't realise that at the time. I just kind of, it was just, the wickets were just flowing over me, but I hadn't quite gathered it was one every other ball.
Whole bunch of good reasons for loving it. Firstly, the spectacle of it. With every wicket that New Zealand took, the glee became more intensified.
Yeah.
They were leaping into each other's arms. There was whooping. There was hollering. You don't get this a lot with New Zealand because they're so kind of down to earth and sensible. And well, I've got another wicket. That's nice, isn't it? Isn't cricket good? You've got to feel a little sorry for the poor girl who's just got out. Sorry, old girl. Never mind. Better luck next time. There's all that kind of thing going on, but that went out the window. They just leapt into each other's arms with increasing rapture and ecstasy, which made for a great spectacle. And it also meant that the game could end soon enough for me to be able to get back here in enough time for us to make up for the fact that you were stuck in traffic and therefore we had to delay the time that we were going to record this, which was, let's make it about us all over again, why don't you?
That's true. I had a hard day.
You did have a hard day, Poppet. You really did. I feel for you.
I
had a hard day. I had to read a very interesting book about pioneering lady cricketers in the 1890s next to the pool downstairs.
That is difficult.
What's
I could see my flat for an hour driving. It didn't disappear.
That must be quite depressing.
It's not the point of it. It was it was a very surreal experience. Anyway, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to cut you off.
All right.
We're going to go to a break.
Yeah.
It's going to be brought to you by Ambassador Cruise Line. And on the other side, we're going to do the Hall of Fame and Daniel's ad break. We'll see you in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. It's the Final Word Daily, brought to you by Ambassador Cruise Line. New Zealand are through to the semi-finals, and the shock of all shocks, the 4th-ranked team in the world has made it to the Final 4. My friend keeps on saying that to me when he's like, is it actually like a shock that New Zealand are there? They're ranked number 4. And I was like, yeah, but they lost so many matches.
Well, let me give you stats. Let me give you some stats. I mean, I say stats. It's just facts. Facts, whatever. New Zealand have not made it through to the knockout stages of a World Cup, 50 over or T20 since 2016. Mealy Kerr has never played a semi-final of a World Cup. Mealy Kerr.
I thought that year was going to be further back.
It's a long time ago. It's 8 years ago.
Yes, that was Rio.
There's been a lot of World Cups since then. 5 of them.
Okay.
Right? Because they play a lot of them. And before that, they were in 10 out of 11 World Cup semi-finals. You look at your likes of your Susie Bateses, your Sophie Devises, your the other ones, your Leah Tahuhus, your staggeringly, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, your Maddie Greens have all been in semi-finals. But that was a reason for the delight for Eden Carson and Fran Jonas and Mealy Kerr and
it was great.
The cheeky chickmunk Georgia Plimmer. They're back. They're in. They're back, New Zealand, and with a group of young players to be proud of. Anyway,
we're running long again.
Sorry, running long. Let's get going. What is the prettier, Copenhagen or Honfleur? You might default to the former, but we are just about certain that after disembarking in one of the most beautiful port towns in Europe, you might change your mind. What's more, you won't be paying €400 to eat ants washed down with the most generic of Danish lagers, but you will instead enjoy a wonderful saucisson, perhaps a fromage bold, or accompanied with a deep red wine at the Christmas markets. Honfleur is the final stop on the Ambassador Cruise Line Cricket Legends Cruise. Not interested in pretty portside pastels? Well, move the conversation along to who has the most picturesque cover drive out of David Gower and Ian Bell. The answer, incidentally, is Damien Martin. Not a fan of saucisson? Well, perhaps talk about Wally Hammond. All this.
I can see the notes. I was just reading over your shoulder. Wally Hammond's got a big penis. Is that the idea?
Not the size of it so much as the state of it.
He was the guy who got...
Don't give it away. Just check out his biographies.
Have a Google.
There are plenty of them. All this, incidentally, at the ridiculously generous starting price of £559 per person. And that's before you get 10% off because you listen to us. It's incredibly easy. Just visit ambassadorcruiseline.com and pop in.
Final word 10.
Yeah, we got there in the end. Final word 10 at checkout, and you'll be sailing away, beating the winter blues. It's in the show notes. Check it out. Ambassador Cruise Line, giving you the chance to cruise with cricket legends this December.
Beautiful as ever. I'm going to go first to the Hall of Fame. Fran Jonas, Iqbal Hussain reincarnate. Left arm finger spinner. Just got an unbelievable arm ball. Pushes it off the index finger, swings it back in. Cleaned up, I can't remember who it was, cleaned up one of the right-handers when they're shaping to cut, and it just cuts them in half. She bowled a very similar delivery at Lord's in one of the T20s against England. Friend and colleague, I think it's allowed to say, friend and colleague Alex Hartley.
Yes.
She's been coaching her.
Has she?
Yeah. And so we were chatting about the game.
To bite England if they play them in the semi-final.
Yeah, we were chatting about the game.
Indies, if they do.
And I was like, I think this actually was an organic conversation. I was like, I think Fran Jonas is really good. And she was like, I've been coaching her. I was like, I think she's shit. There we go. Fran Jonas, that's my Hall of Fame.
That's your Hall of Fame. My Hall of Fame is, there are some reviews that happen really quickly because the umpire's done a really good job. There are some reviews that take a really, really, really long time, like yesterday's run out that was initially given as a stumping when somebody's foot didn't move at all, and yet can you rock and roll that? I don't know what we're rocking and rolling. We're rocking and rolling nothing because nothing's moved. No foot's moved. Today, we got a confusing review. Susie Bates, first over, Fatima Sana's bowling. Ball very, very close to the inside edge. Very, very close. I would say might have been on the inside edge, but squiggly line, right? Was it the pad or was it the bat? I was on commentary with, I think it was Firdaus Munda of ESPN Quick Info. And we then, this is going to take a while because I don't know how we're going to unscramble this. Suddenly, it went to ball tracking when ready. Clearly wasn't LBW. That wasn't what the appeal was for. Not out. You can stick with your original decision. So, how on earth has that happened? I mean, obviously, the real Hall of Fame is 3 catches dropped in the last over, all of Nadar going increasingly mad, with incidentally new green hair, which
nice.
I did love. And on a serious note, Hall of Fame worthy, and genuinely touching and moving. I'm not good at sincerity, so please bear with me because I am about to be sincere. Fatima Sana at the anthems, it's heartbreaking because her dad's only recently died and she's gone back to Pakistan, seen her, said her goodbyes, her farewells to her father, flown straight back to play in this game. And bless her, she was crying her eyes out at the anthems and it tugged at my heartstrings, I've got to say.
I think that is incredibly Hall of Fame worthy and a worthy point to end on. This has been the final word. It's been brought to you by Ambassador Cruise Line. 2 fantastic days of cricket in a row. We're back tomorrow for the de facto quarterfinal between West Indies and England. We're having fun. It's turning into a great tournament.
It is getting better. Well, it's getting to the fun side now. It's every day is consequential. Today was consequential. Tomorrow's consequential. Semi-finals are consequential. And today's the final. So it's all go, go, go.
We'll see you and speak to you tomorrow.
Au revoir. Au fleur. Au revoir. Ooh la la.